Today, we're going to discuss the topic of trust issues. Specifically, is it okay to date a woman with trust issue, and what are some of the difficulties that you're likely to encounter? This topic is an interesting one because I think most of us at some point dated a woman with trust issues or know of somebody like that. It's more common than you think. So let's talk about it. Can you make it work? Yes, in most cases. But in some cases, there are certain red flags that you need to look out for. Now, there are quite a few causes of trust issues, but I'm going to talk about the two biggest causes as to why someone has trust issues. The first one is related to childhood, and the second one is related to romantic relationship. They both have similar solutions, but they're quite different in terms of how they manifest. So the first one, trust issues that are related to childhood. The most common cause of this is some form of abandonment. And depending on how bad it is, it often manifests itself as a personality disorder called borderline personality disorder, or BPD for short. Someone with this personality is usually emotionally unstable and impulsive. When it comes to relationships, it often expresses itself as a form of insecurity, paranoia, jealousy, but most importantly, hypersensitivity to anything that might feel like you're pulling away, even if you're not. So typically what happens in her childhood is that the parents were not there for her. It could be the father or the mother or both. But it all boils down to the fact that her needs were not met. For example, she might grow up in a household where her father was a drunk. He never spent time with her and he always made a scene whenever he left the house. As a child, she could internalize the message that maybe she was not good enough or something was wrong with her, and that's why her father never spent time with her. So later on, when she started dating, let's say it's the weekend and the guy is just having a night out with the boys. But for her, she might interpret that the same way as how her father always left her. So she freaks out on the guy like, oh my god, you don't love me, you hate me, you're gonna leave me. And the guy was just like, what the hell? This doesn't make any sense. I'm just gonna be out for a little bit. It's not about you. I'm not leaving you. But you see, for a woman with trust issues, she's not gonna be able to take that very well because she's afraid of being abandoned. This problem becomes even more serious when she's making you responsible for her emotions. This is where we get into the topic of codependency. Whenever you do anything that might feel like you're pulling away, that's going to cause her to stress out and panic, like, oh my god, he doesn't love me, he's going to leave me. A lot of the time, she doesn't realize that it's the childhood trauma that's causing her to feel that way. Instead, she sees you as the trigger as well as being the source of her emotions. Because of this, she might genuinely think that any irrational response from her is justifiable, like, of course I'm angry, of course I'm mad. It's you. You make me feel this way. Very difficult for any man to deal with because on one hand, you want to be supportive and compassionate. But on the other hand, if you were to agree or give in to that, then you're essentially feeding into what would be an inappropriate behavior. And that would further solidify her behavior. So if you approve of that behavior, she's going to do it again and again and again. And that's not good. Now, ideally, you want her to be aware of what's going on. And I believe that therapy is a great way to do this. With willing patients, therapy has proven to be very effective when it comes to this type of trauma. A lot of it has to do with separating the trigger from the source of trauma, slowly working through all of the emotions and how to express those emotions in a healthy way. But the point I'm trying to make here is that I think it's okay to date a woman with trust issues, provided that, number one, she's aware of it, and number two, she's willing to work on it. I know it sounds simple, but it's not easy, and not all women are willing to work on it because maybe in addition to BPD, she is also very entitled, delusional, lazy, toxic. Like, I'm good. I'm perfectly fine the way I am. You just need to be better and do whatever I tell you to do. Then I'll have no problems. If you meet a woman like that, just cut your losses. It's not worth it. Because not only does she have trust issues, she has a bunch of other issues as well. That's very difficult. I would also say that it's not your job to be that replacement father figure. Because when a trauma happens from the parents, it's very difficult for a romantic partner to meet those needs. Because the needs from the parents are non-reciprocal. So even though you love her, it doesn't mean that it's necessarily your responsibility to fix them, or that it's even possible for you to fix them because there's just so much codependency going on. She sees you as the trigger as well as the source of her emotions. Can you really be the solution to that? I think it's a better idea to seek professional help. Okay, now let's talk about women with trust issues from relationships. because even if she grew up with perfect parents, she can still develop pretty intense trust issues just from her romantic relationships. For example, you might encounter a woman who got cheated on once, twice, 3 times, or she was in an abusive relationship, both mentally and sexually, or some other really bad relationships, and now she has developed serious trust issues. So when you're in a relationship with her, small things you do that will be understandable in the context of a healthy relationship, but because of her psychological trauma, she is unable to tolerate that from you, and she makes you responsible for what happened to her in the past. That's very difficult because, again, it's highly codependent. What do? Do you support her and give her the space to explore those emotions? Or by doing so, you are reinforcing the legitimacy of her behavior and the fact that she's blaming it on you. Again, the solutions here would be to have the self-awareness and the willingness to seek professional help. Just because something happens to you in your adult life doesn't mean you can't seek therapy for it. So as a boyfriend, you should let her know the impact of what her trust issues have on you and your relationship. Because when she realizes that it's not just about her, but it's also about everyone else that she's in a relationship with, maybe then that will motivate her to seek professional help. Now, there's also the question of whether or not you want to invest your time and energy into this type of relationship. If she's making it very difficult and she is highly codependent, then maybe you're better off dating someone else who does not have these issues. However, if she's amazing at everything else and you two have a history together, or for some reason you want to invest into this relationship, I believe that it's possible. But the most important thing is that you need to see evidence of her trying to get better. A lot of women will talk a good talk, but whether they'll follow through with that, that's something you need to look out for. Personally, I see trust issues as a yellow flag. But if she doesn't do anything to improve that, that to me is a red flag. And I would encourage you to stay away from that as well. Alright, that's all. Quite a heavy topic, but important nonetheless. If you have dated somebody with trust issues before, I'd love to hear about your experience in the comment section. Until next time, stay curious.